strongest book from Future
Oh,
State.
for Future State? Oh.
Sorry, my words were failing me. I was fiddling with something. Yeah, no. The as far as all the different Future State books go, I, like for my taste, Swamp Thing has been the best thing they've put out. It's I don't know why it's so good. I don't know if I can put my finger on it, but I love it.
Well, it's just, I mean, first of all, what I liked about it is it's still it's the Swamp Thing character. It's not somebody dressed up as, say, like the Batman books. Someone's dressed up playing Batman. I just can't, not to mention the Batman book is $8.
Right.
And, of course, there's 3, 4 maybe stories in each one. I didn't care for any of the other stories that were in the book. So I was passively interested in it anyway. For $8, I dropped it.
I've been digging the Grifter story. So the one where he's like trying to get somebody out of Gotham and they has to team up with the Huntress. Other than that, yeah, I'm not necessarily feeling any of it. I mean, they're not bad, and there's been some good artwork. I forget who the artist was that was doing the Signal, but their art really kind of stuck with me for a little bit, more so than the story did. But no, I mean, it's not been bad stuff. I think for me, because it kind of coalesced with us reading Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I read the Swamp Thing Future State issue right before I think we really cracked open that first trade. There's a lot in there that I saw like that they pulled from, which I think is great. Like I love it when they use the source material, but they're not using the source material, but not just regurgitating the source material. I think they did a really good job of like walking that line in it, because there's just some neat stuff they use to change everything.
Well, so I know you guys don't watch any anime, and I don't watch much, but for instance, One Piece, they get close to getting caught up with the writer, and, getting caught up to the manga series. And so what they do is they do these filler episodes, which have nothing to do with the ongoing story. They're completely made up, take place in it. That's what all of this always feels like to me.
Yeah.
It's, a way, as Matt said, to get $8 from me for a book I'm not going to read.
Yeah, man, that's just asinine to me.
The $8 is, I will say, and it's a weak defense, and I don't mean to try to sound like I'm like trying to toe the line for them though. At least they are giving you 3 or 4 different stories. Like it's a thicker book. It's not just a 28 comic.
But
it's still too much.
It's weekly comic book or a monthly comic book is stupid.
Yeah, it's too much. Like I'm not towing the line for them on that price. It's too much. I'm just saying.
I dropped Deadpool for exactly that reason, because about every 5th issue was a $10 book.
I remember that. Yeah,
it's like how about you go fuck off? I'm not paying $10 for a book twice a year just because you want to.
No, for twice that I can get 140 pages of a graphic novel, hardcover, and put it on my shelf.
How about you go fuck off?
Craig needs that on a t-shirt.
That's a bumper sticker if I've ever seen one.
That's exactly what listeners want to hear on the first of the episode. Just hey, here's a new podcast. Let me see what this is. How about you go fuck off?
How about you go fuck off?
Well, welcome to another episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeedy. This is episode 165. No matter what the Zoom title tells you, I have no idea why I put episode 196, but I did. But no, this is episode 165 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As always, good morning. Got my coffee in me, so I'm feeling great. I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance. Hey, I have a question. Do I sound like I'm distant on these Zoom calls?
You feel like you've been pulling away from us for a long time. I'm glad you brought it up.
Does it sound like I'm distant? Like my voice, not my personality. I have been pulling away from you guys for a while, but
nah, you sound way too close.
Do I? Okay, I'll back way the hell up then.
No,
I had somebody tell me that it sounded like I was away from the microphone a bit, so I just wanted to make sure.
On my end, you sound fine. Now, I will say I need to go and check in on the last few episodes, but sometimes the Zoom recording does this like auto leveling thing.
Okay.
So I've noticed for some reason, like on a few episodes a while back, Matt sounded like he was a lot louder than either of us, and he wasn't
It's
while we were
because
recording.
Matt, he talks real loud.
Well,
That's
Were
why.
were we talking about the Punisher?
Possibly that might have been what it was. There was some extra added bass in your voice. You sounded like you were cockstrong for sure. But no, it does that weird thing where it like auto levels. And
Gotcha.
so, yeah.
So if one person's way high, the other two will sound a little bit more distance. So
Yeah.
Matt, be quiet. No, I'm kidding.
Regardless, this is some premium content we're offering here.
It is, man.
This is
you
great.
guys should be happy that you're listening to us talk about the behind the scenes, how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
This is the great radio. But we're not here to talk about audio technical issues and all of that fun stuff because number one, I'm not qualified to talk about them. I just push buttons on this damn thing, and then it makes itself happen. But we're here to talk about comics, and so today is going to be a little bit of a looser day. We don't really have any format that we're going to follow per se. We've got some things we're going to talk about, but we all live in Central Arkansas, and we got dumped on this week. I mean, full on blizzard. If you guys listened to the episode from last week, you'll know that some of that carried over. I was exhausted, and I want to say thank you to my brethren for taking charge and leading the way on the show, because I just didn't have it in me last week. So I appreciate that. You guys carried me through, as you always do. But we are back. The snow is starting to trickle away. We got above freezing for more than 2 hours straight. That was great. It's not something that you're used to saying in Arkansas. But yeah, like 7 days of below freezing temperatures. It was dumb. But comics did not get delivered at our local comic shop until I think yesterday, maybe Friday. At the earliest. So I know you guys were able to get over to the LCS and pick some up. I have yet not, but we got together and we said, hey, like, we don't like, let's just have a show. Like, we haven't been able to sit down and talk to each other in like a year, just kind of shoot the shit, and we miss that. So that's kind of what this episode is going to be. Just us kind of catching up. We got some questions for each other, I think, and we'll go from there. But first, because we are a comics-based podcast, I want to know what you guys have been reading this week. What you flipping pages on?
Go ahead, Matt.
So I did make it to the comic book shop yesterday, and they did get some books in. There's only one new book in my stack of books I'm going to mention from this week, and that's actually number 2 from Image Comics. This is the W. Maxwell Prince book. His writing and the art is Zoe Thorogood. Yeah, this is as advertised, as in the solicitations. This is a totally separate story from issue number 1, self-contained, good story. There are a lot of parallels to the last one. The art was great. I really dug this story.
Is this the clown book?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm on track now.
So yeah, I dug this one. This was cool. I was talking to somebody else in the shop about it, and I'm like, I'm not sure how easy it's going to be for me to stay interested in a book that's not, the stories aren't cohesive, but we'll see. I'm gonna see how it goes. So far, so
is
good.
this an ongoing, Matt, or is it a miniseries?
I don't think it was solicited as a mini series. No.
Okay. So like Ice Cream Man, it'll just be ongoing until they quit selling, probably.
Yeah, I guess that's how they're going to be ongoing until it ain't.
There you go.
Also, I picked up, this is a book that's been out for a couple of weeks, Aftershock, number 1, Maniac of New York by Elliot Kalan and Andre Moody. This was really good. It's about a serial killer in New York City that's been operating for a long, long time, of which the detectives of said precinct in New York City, nobody wants to touch it. This was good. It's not a super unique story. It's a serial killer, detectives going after a serial killer story. There's countless amounts of those, but it was done really well. So yeah, I'm going to follow this one, see where it goes.
Awesome.
And thirdly, I picked up an old book. This was something when I picked it up, I bought it for the cover. I got it as a $1 issue from Dark Horse Comics in 2010. It's an issue of Conan. Derek Robertson did the cover on this. I was like, oh, that's a really cool cover for $1. I'll buy it. The story is called The Weight of the Crown. When I opened it up to look at it, I realized that Derek Robertson also, he not only illustrated the interiors, but he wrote this story as well. And I'm not familiar with Derek Robertson, never writing a story before.
No, that's a new one for me. That's awesome.
So this is his Conan story. Art, obviously, is what it always is with him. Really good. It opens up with some great battle scenes. And The Weight of the Crown kind of gives away what the story's about. It's about Conan taking the crown and not really digging it so much. I'll admit, I do not feel like it captures the story of the Conan the Barbarian character very well. But the art alone makes it worth the read. And the sketches in the back are amazing. Damn, I wish some of these sketches made it into the book. Good night. These sketches are just killer. So yeah, that was I just kind of stumbled upon that find that I didn't know existed.
Nice.
I had no idea he worked on Conan. That's weird and awesome.
Yeah.
So, again, I didn't read any new books this week. Wanted to bring attention again to the Darth Vader series from Marvel. That's just been pure fire. Just absolutely loving where it's going. Can't wait to see where the next issue is. If you are a Star Wars fan and you're not reading this series, you really need to ask yourself, what are you doing with your life? I've also been continuing on the Alan Moore Swamp Thing run, which, it's absolutely golden, as you well know if you've read it. There's a reason why it's a classic. And then in addition to that, I've also been reading The Adventures of Luke Skywalker collection that I have. And, these are old comics from 70s and 80s that have been collected in an omnibus format. It's pretty much any story that had Luke Skywalker in it. And, some of them are better than others. So they're done in different styles, different artists and writers on just about every issue, but still just a lot of fun to go back and read some of that. So.
Yes, it is. Man, I miss a lot of those books. I every once in a while you'll see a collected edition from some of those floating around. I always want to pick it up, and I always find a reason not to, which is stupid.
What's your reason not to?
Something else like usually where I see them, it's at a con or something like that, at a booth, and there'll be something else there that I'm like, oh, but then there's this, and I'll pick it up, which is
so I don't think that's good enough. What about you, Craig?
Probably not. I actually have 2 of these books. One of them I am getting signed by different people that have been in the Star Wars movies, and so that I don't destroy that book, I have another book for reading purposes.
Nice. Yeah, how many signatures do you have on that thing now?
Somewhere around 12 or 13.
I was going to say, you've been working at that for several years now.
Yeah, it started with, and it's not just Star Wars people. If I go to a convention that has any of the creators working on it that worked in the books, have them sign it as well. So, first signature was Michael Golden. And then the second signature in there was Mark Hamill. And since then, it's just been whoever I can get.
Nice.
The only issue with it is it weighs about 150 pounds to carry around the convention with you.
Need a furniture dolly to carry it around.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, dude, it always cracks me up when you go to cons and you said dollies, which is what made me think of this. There are literally people who will bring like short boxes on dollies to carry around with them, and most of the time they're eBay flippers and whatnot. But
slowly raise his hand, even though I'm not a eBay flipper. I've done that before.
Yeah,
if I go out of state to a convention, I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, let's put it right out there. That is the least weirdest thing you see at a convention.
That's true. Yeah. I want to get one of those old school little red wagons and carry around with me.
I've seen that before too.
Fun
No,
time.
I'm going to ride in that if you get one of those.
Yes. Hopefully they'll have a
Only
ramp.
if you carry our books. Will you carry our books while you sit in the red wagon? I'll pull you around.
Absolutely.
Or make Matt wear a speed racer costume as he like rides around in the wagon. I want that to happen so bad. so bad. Well, Craig, buddy, I'm glad that you have also been carrying on and reading the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, because I have been right there with you. We're kind of in simpatico with that. We're syncing up. So I finished the last of the Absolute Volume 1 hardcover that I had, mowed through that. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because it reminded me when we were having that conversation and I was mentioning that Karen Berger was listed on mine and we were all kind of scratching our heads. She was an editor towards the middle of that run, Matt, and you really start to see that when you start seeing some of the Sandman characters show up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one issue where Cain and Abel take kind of center stage. So that's really, you start to really feel her influence later in the book. So I don't know that she worked on any of the stories that would have been in the first 8 issues that we covered. I'd have to go back and check, but you really feel her hand later on in that series.
Yeah.
Just that, like, I was thinking about you as I got to there. I'm like, oh, here it is. This is where we're at. Oh, and apparently, and this is something that a friend of ours on the Facebook group told us or informed us of. We were having that conversation about Rick Veitch and Total Bomb and why their name was on there. Well, apparently, Rick Veitch and my brain just completely shut off. The main artist on the series,
Stephen Bissett.
Yeah, sorry. Apparently, they shared a studio, and so they were, with timing issues and deadlines. Apparently, Rick Veitch jumped in there to help him finish up some stuff, and did one or two issues on his own, but they were like separate from the ongoing arcs. So that's where he comes in. So just kind of a cool little historical footnote. I thought it was neat.
Well, it's kind of nice that they went back and given him some credit for it then.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in some printings, that's what's weird.
Yeah.
Well, mine's an older printing, so that would explain why mine doesn't have that in there.
Yeah, it's some of the newer stuff, which makes me wonder when it came out, or if it was like a willing thing, or if Steve said, "Hey, you need to credit this guy," or if Rick said, "Hey, you need to credit me." So I don't know. I'm curious. I'd love to know some of the more nuanced history of that. It'd be interesting.
You'd probably never get Rick Veitch to say.
I've never actually heard him do an interview. Have either of you?
No, but I do follow him on social media, and he's pretty straightforward when it's just his art. You know what I mean? He doesn't get into anything other than sharing his art.
Nice. While I was hitting up, so most of my stuff is older that I read this week. So I read a book called Pride of Baghdad while I was at it. This is written by Brian K. Vaughan and Nico Henriksen. This was fun. I don't know if you guys have read this. Essentially, it's 2001 it would have been 2004, 2005 when the United States rolled into Baghdad and wrecked shop. And it's based on a true story. Apparently, there was a zoo in the heart of Baghdad that when the United States bombed the shit out of it, knocked down some walls, and a lot of the zoo animals got loose, including a pride of lions who were then just kind of roaming around Baghdad doing lion-y type things.
Lion-y.
Like lions do. Very Lion King-ish.
Who interviewed the lions to get their side of the story?
Well, he would have, but none of them made it out, which is
right.
That day. It was a womp, womp, womp kind of thing. Fun story. It's always interesting for me to go back.
Fun story. Womp, womp, womp. They all die.
It was a fun story. It doesn't necessarily end well. It doesn't end the way you want it to. I mean, like you said, spoilers.
It is a good
everybody
story.
Dies. But it was fun. It was fun to read. And it's always interesting, at least for me, to go back and read stories about the early days of the Iraqi war, because So I'm 33, and that would have been right when I started middle school / high school or junior high. And that's all, like, 9/11 and the Middle Eastern wars have been the single thing that's defined my generation for the most part. So it's neat to go back and read some of these books that were, about that time and written about that time. And for somebody whose favorite kind of animated thing is Lion King, it was very, very much in that vein. So I dug it. Last but certainly not least, jumping way back into the Wayback Machine, I picked up at our local comic shop a few weeks ago the Darkness Compendium Volume 1, big old thick tome. Of course, it's the Darkness. It's everything you remember it being. Garth Ennis put his pen to it, and then for me, and this is the best part of it, is just going back and looking at Mark Silvestri's work, seeing what he's doing. You can tell when he was rushed. You can tell when he was able to take his time. I love Silvestri. I've said it before. He's my favorite artist of the 90s, like that came out of like the Image Revolution era. And part of that is because of some of the work that he did on the Darkness. And it's very pin-uppy. The story is very, very 90s. It's very, XX extreme, if you will, but it's still cool. It feels very dated now. It's one of those things that didn't necessarily stand the test of time, but the art is still gorgeous. It's Silvestri. But you can see how fluid he is. Like there's some panels where he takes his time and he has a very like Bronze Age feel to it, and then there's some where like somebody knocked on his door and said, "Hey, it's the 90s. You got to draw like it's the 90s," and he whips out a bunch of blockheads and lets the colorist do some digital fill-in stuff and the texture. So your money may vary, but I dug it. So it's been neat to kind of retread that ground. I've got the Witchblade compendium up on deck. At some point, I'm going to be able to read it. Go back down that road.
I mean, to each their own.
Boy, that was a big question mark at the end of that statement.
There was. He found out as if he might change his mind and just say no. No,
well, it takes all kinds. As Craig just said.
Art is subjective. We'll just go with that.
I mean, I'm not arguing that it's Silvestri's best stuff, but I will say that as a
I'm not talking about Darkness. I was talking about Witchblade.
Oh yeah, no. I don't even know who did the main art on that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
I've got it sitting about 12 feet away from me, but my eyes are old and I can't read the small print on it, and I don't want to get up because I'm lazy. So
all good.
But as far as the Darkness goes, Jackie Estacado and the way he was drawn by Silvestri had a large influence on a young Caleb's burgeoning sexuality. So it's been interesting. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that panel. I wonder what happened to that book. It's stuck together somewhere. Anyway.
Alrighty.
Well, what we got this episode? I know we said we're going to keep it lax, keep it free, just keep it going. What y'all want to talk about?
I mean, we kind of came up with some different stuff, but I guess I'll start here. We discussed, guest bathroom books. Like, what do you have out for people to look at when they come to your house? So, whichever one of you two wants to start, jump right in.
Caleb.
Okay, yeah, I'll kick this off. So this is a fun topic. And I'm curious to know what kind of thought process y'all put into yours. So I do have a couple of different books stacked up in my guest bathroom, and they're all anthologies for the most part, with the idea being, friend comes over, they got to go drop the kids off at the pool. They need a quick read real quick.
I have to ask how friendly they are if they're coming to your house to drop kids off at the pool.
I mean, they stay for a while. We have a few drinks. They need to go take a boo-boo. That's okay. That's a good friend. When a friend feels free to unload at your house, that's when you've got a decent relationship. Or they hate you. There you go. As long as they don't upper deck you, I think you're fine. But no, so I've got a few books. Like I said, mostly they're anthologies. I've got two that I've got in there are the Where We Live and the Love is Love anthologies, and those I keep in there just because they're dear to my heart. I know Craig has read these. I'm not sure if Matt had picked these up, but the Love is Love book came out after the massacre in Orlando, and then the Where We Live came out after the massacre in Las Vegas. So they're kind of heavy reads. So they typically stay towards the bottom of the stack. But I also have a couple of books on there. Please Don't Step on My Jinko Jeans by Noah Van Sciver. Short read full of these small little vignettes that are funny as hell. Written by a guy who's middle-aged thinking about, being younger in the late 90s. So that's fun. I've got a Super Spy by Matt Kent stacked up there. Apocalypse Nerd by Peter Bagg. Also cool. And then I've got Nate Powell's You Don't Say, which is a series of his short stories. Just as I love Nate Powell. It's kind of, if I had to qualify something, that would be the, chicken soup for your soul book that I keep in my bathroom.
All righty. I mean, good choices. Matt, what do you got in your bathroom, buddy?
I've got a graphic novel. I guess is how you would categorize this. It's called The Comic Book Story of Beer, the world's favorite beverage from 7000 BC to today's craft brewing revolution. This is by Jonathan Hennessy and Mike Smith. And it is, everything's right there in the title. And it's a really, I used to be very, very much into craft beer. I made my own beer for years. Mm-hmm. So this was, two of my greatest interests colliding. And so I like having it out because it's a historical piece of work that is easy to review. You could just look at the pictures, for example, and it kind of just shows, to the uninitiated, other things that comic book type storytelling can do. And because there's a lot of these kind of books out there,
right? The
history of this, the history of that, done in comic book form. So I like having it out for that reason. It's something unique and different, and things that people don't, will see and not associate with sequential storytelling. And so plus that, I also have an old, what we call reader copy of, which to the uninitiated, a reader copy is a comic book that's just beat all to hell, mm-hmm. tattered sometimes, just, it has just been used to death, but still holding together. It's from Marvel, Conan the Barbarian, number 82 from the late 70s. I have this out because it is, first of all, it's my favorite penciler of all time, John Buscema.
Yes, sir.
Story, of course, is written by Roy Thomas. This team is really what is solely responsible for reintroducing Conan the Barbarian to pop culture, and the number one selling comic book for Marvel at the time. It's great to look at. John Buscema is just a towering figure of the industry, the history mm-hmm. of the industry, and puts on a clinic on how to draw comic books, and is my go-to visage when I think of Conan the Barbarian. I think of John Buscema's Conan the Barbarian. Yep. And his figure drawing, his action scenes, and the facial expressions of Conan himself that John Buscema they're unbeatable. John Buscema's facial expressions of Conan are unbeatable. They're amazing. Something in the original Conan stories that Robert E. Howard always said is that Conan has volcanic eyes. And I don't think anybody illustrates that better than John Buscema. He's just so good at drawing Conan as a streetwise, I'm studying you and I don't trust you type face. It's just excellent to look at.
Facts.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's the go-to, or the one that we all kind of think of when it comes to Conan.
Yeah, he was just the best. So I have that out because it just captures everything about, Conan the Barbarian so well. And then I have one other reader copy of Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X number 84. This is, of course, the famous Barry Windsor Smith run. All the same kind of elements. It's amazing to look at. Barry Windsor Smith puts a clinic on as far as what this art form can achieve, and basically performing well above what it requires. It's just, I never get sick of just flipping through the pages and looking at the artwork in this storyline.
That's a story I need to go back and reread. It's been forever.
I've reread it I don't know how many times, just because the story is good and the artwork is beyond measure. Again, the guy it's just another clinic that to put on, and again, it just over delivers, especially for the time it came out. It just over delivers for what the medium was, because again, this is an amazing amount of work that was going into a very short story. It was only 12 pages or so, and the book was $1.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about over delivering. I mean, it did that, but not just for the time, but for the title. I mean, this came out in Marvel Comics Presents. All of those stories were just supposed to be throwaway things. They weren't something that was supposed to stand the test of time. That was for, broke kids whose parents wouldn't let them buy 3 or 4 comics, but they could get one comic with a bunch of different characters. And then you get Barry Windsor Smith just walking in and just, whipping it out and laying it on the table. And it was just like, hey, this is going to live forever. So I'm curious, do you guys have the single issues of that?
I have at least 2 different copies of the run. I may have 3.
I do not know.
So I have almost a full run of Marvel Comics Presents. I don't ask me why. I don't have a rational explanation for why I look for that book, other than it's a fun book to have and it's easy to collect. Other than the Weapon X storyline and 2 or 3 others, there's no like big dollar books out of the series, and so this is part of the collection that I do have. I've still got a few more that I'm just on the hunt for, but again,
you had amazing artists in those books. You had Sam Keith, you had Jay Lee. I mean, Jay Lee's first ever Marvel work was in a Marvel Comics Presents. So, there's some books in there. And also, just so you're aware, Kapow will have a whole bunch of those before too long. Okay. So
nice.
Keep that in mind to fill in your gaps.
Yeah, I need to go hunting.
Yeah.
It's been a long time it's been well over a year since I've dollar bin dived.
So, when we talked about this, I don't really have any books in my bathroom, so to speak, but I do have one book that you'll find floating around my house. And there's a very specific reason. We live in the Bible Belt, and people will come to your house and so I don't see a copy of the Bible anywhere. But why don't you have a copy of the Bible out? So I went and found a book that satisfies their curiosity and it portrays my interest, and that is the Book of Genesis, illustrated by R. Crumb.
Yes.
And so this book, on the cover of it, it tells you it covers all 50 chapters, and it does. And there is a warning on this book: adult supervision recommended for minors. And it says the first book of the Bible graphically depicted, nothing left out. I guarantee you, when people look at this book and they flip through it, they will no longer ask me about the Bible and why it's not out. People, when you read the Bible, you kind of skim over a lot of the stuff that would be graphically depicted.
Oh, you mean like the murder and genocide and everything?
All the murder, the sex, the nudity, the incest. All of these things, the eating your children, all of the things as it's talked about in the Book of Genesis, he doesn't shy away from any of it. So, R. Crumb is problematic as far as his personal life, but you can't deny his art. and it's absolutely a beautifully, stunningly drawn book.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love to just flip through this book on occasion, even without reading it, just to enjoy the art. But yeah, it's that is a book you will find at different places in my house, either in my downstairs living room or my upstairs living room, and on the coffee table at different times, or maybe on the bookshelf. But it's always available for somebody to just pick up and flip through.
It's funny how we have those similar artists, because like I said, I've got Peter Bagg in mind, and he's a very R. Crumb-esque type of guy.
Yeah.
That whole San Francisco comics with an X revolution.
I mean, in addition to that, I have a couple of other books laying around, but those are actually my wife's books. And to be honest, I was lazy and did not go get the information about them. But one of them we picked up at a comic book convention, and it was all of the funds went to Planned Parenthood.
Oh, nice.
All of the proceeds went to Planned Parenthood. So we leave that out for people to look at and flip through. We bought it just for that reason. So
y'all picked that up when we went to Chicago together, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah. And for some reason, I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, and I should have got that information. But anyways, those are two you will find out at my house almost all the time.
I almost feel obligated at this point to go like find a semi-waterproof / resistant Star Wars book, because it almost seems wrong, like fundamentally wrong, that you don't have a Star Wars book in your Star Wars bathroom.
Well, there's Star Wars books everywhere in my house, so
yeah.
I'm gonna find that book. You guys go ahead. I'm gonna get the name of that book and get it back to you.
Okay. Well, Matt, did you got a question you want to throw into the ring?
So I'd like to know, this is something we've touched on before, but something I think about a lot is creators / creations that you may feel are overdue for a screen adaptation, whether that be movie or television. So I would like to know what's the top of your list for those, Caleb?
So I thought about this, and we've thought about it a lot, right? Because this is something that comes up constantly. And I think one of the answers that I'm always going to have until it happens is not necessarily a singular thing, but it's by a writer / cartoonist that I'm actually still very, very, very surprised hasn't been picked up in Hollywood yet. And that's Jeff Lemire. Everything from, you look at his entire catalog, he's done a lot of work. Underwater Welder. Like, I think that would make a very artiste type film, not something that, you're going to rush to the theater to see with the kids, but that's always been something I thought would make a good film adaptation, even all the way up to his Black Hammer stuff that he's doing now. I think that's, rich and ripe for the pillaging. He's just done so much. Essex County, I think, would make a great television show, something that the Coen brothers could put a spin on or something like that. It's hard for me to kind of understand why nobody has picked his stuff up, other than he may not be interested in it. And that's fine, because again, this is something else I always say when we have this conversation. I'm a firm believer that not everything needs to be adapted. Like, there are some things that I personally believe that comics is the best medium to portray that story. For example, like I always toy with the idea, and somebody else may have this, and I don't want to, go to it in case they do, but like Brubaker's stuff. I love Ed Brubaker's stuff. I don't need to see it in any other type of medium. I think what he does with Phillips is kind of the pinnacle of what those stories can do. And so, like, I always have trouble with this type of category, because I waffle back and forth with myself. It's like, is this something that I think could be done well? And even if I think it could be done well, doesn't need to be. Comics by Raina Telgemeier, I think, would be great to see for kids. I think maybe an animated version of books like Smile would be better. That's one of those that I don't know how well it would come off, but she's such a towering figure in comics. I mean, as far as, most of her stuff is sold through Scholastics, but she's easily the best-selling comics writer and artist of the last 10 years. If you don't count like One Piece and some of the manga stuff, if you're just looking at American comics, what she does in Scholastic blows everything else out of the water when it comes to like actual volume sold. David LaPalme, something like Stray Bullets, I could see that being made. He's done some weird and quirky work that I think would make for a really weird film. But I think we're in the era now to where weird film, and I'm using that word specifically, could be done well.
So you're talking about his Stray Bullets work, being adapted.
Yeah, that's one of them I think would do well.
Well, that's interesting. You say that Brubaker's stuff you don't think it could have benefited from being adapted, but Stray Bullets can. So how do you see the difference between the two? Because it's similar. It's crime genre stuff. It is,
and the difference in that is, I think that Brubaker's stuff is damn near perfection. Like when it comes to crime genre stuff, I hold Brubaker stuff up on a pedestal. LaPalme stuff is good. That's not saying it's not, and that's not even saying that, like, a qualifier like good is even a signify, like that's even necessarily something that comes up in the mix. I just think that the panel work that Phillips does, just the culmination of those two artists, I can only see something being lost. And the stories are so usually straightforward. Like, he's not reinventing the wheel when it comes to the genre. And so they really do just get into the craft of like comic making. And I think that's part of the magic of those books, like Cruel Summer. The design of the page and everything really goes into it. The way that he controls the reader's eye with the narrative. And I think that's both Brubaker and Phillips.
Well, I guess my question is, so what does Stray Bullets have to gain? If what you're saying, I get, but so right. Going back to, why would you want to see Stray Bullets adapted, but not Brubaker and Phillips stuff?
I don't think that, I don't know if it would have anything to gain. I think look, I mean, honestly, just from my opinion, it's less beloved to me. And so as I'm thinking of things, I could, like, as I read Stray Bullets, I can cast the actors and do anything. It's completely subjective, as I think is what I'm saying. I don't necessarily know that it would gain anything. Because it's less beloved to me, I could see it being adapted, and I could see it being done really well. And, you get a weird, quirky, funky filmmaker who wants to do some like noir type things, who wants to bring back, maybe even do it like serial television. I think you could do that. I think you could do it well. Does it need to be done? No, not necessarily. And I really don't necessarily know that I have a well thought out or a articulable answer about why I think it would do well.
Yeah, I'm picking up on that.
Do what? You bastard.
I said, yeah, I'm picking up on that.
No, it's just one of those hilarious things. The style of the book, there are things that I think could be done through cinematography and film work that would bring something out of it, to where, you get Brubaker, and I just think that you're only going to lose some of that if you try to adapt it. Good stories all day long, but I don't see how you could make that book and lose Sean Phillips and not lose Sean Phillips if you tried to shoot it. And I don't want to lose Sean Phillips out of those books. Whereas with David LaPalme, you're always going to have some sense of David LaPalme in there. So
there you go. I wanted to add the name of that book that I was too lazy to go find before is Mine, which obviously means my body.
Right.
It's put out by Comics Mix, and as I said, all the proceeds go to Planned Parenthood, and it's got probably 200 different people that worked on it. So as far as what I would like to see adapted, I'm glad I didn't listen to Caleb and I went ahead and made like 3 just in case instead of the one we were told to do. I'll start with Tim Seeley and specifically Hack Slash.
Yeah.
I think if you did that series as a television series, you could do it very X-File-ish, and not the conspiracy part of it, but just the kind of monster of the week episodes they had. I think it would be amazingly done, like as a Netflix or Amazon Prime type series.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see Mouse by Art Spiegelman adapted to a movie. I think that would absolutely be stunning if you did it in a animated, so that you could keep the obviously the mice, the rats, the pigs, the different animals they use to represent different parts of society. I think that would be absolutely great. And then the last one is Justin Jordan's work. Typically, when you think of Justin Jordan, you're going to think of the Luther Strode stuff to be adapted. I honestly would prefer Spread to be adapted.
Oh, yeah.
And it could be done as a movie or as a television series. You could make it an ongoing television series. Similar to Walking Dead, a post-apocalyptic television series where you have this monster that's out there killing them, and how humans interact with each other in those times is always interesting to me. So that would be 3 that I would choose to have done.
See, Mouse is on on one of those lists that I'm just like, oh no, please don't touch it. Just let it be perfect.
Oh, I think if you did it as an animated series and you mimicked the art style, I think it would be fantastic. But, I'm also a person that loves that era of history, as far as like, I don't love it, like want it to be repeated.
Right.
I find it fascinating to read stories that take place in that era.
Yep.
So, I mean, for me, I would love to see that adapted, but I also get why you wouldn't want to mess with it. So, I can see it both ways, but if it was done in the same art style, I think it would be great.
Well, going back to David Lapham, if anything of his I would like to see adapted, that'd be Ferals.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. I think
I think Ferals would have more to gain than anything from his stuff being adapted.
Oh,
I would absolutely love to see that.
Was it Lapham that did Silverfish? Was that his book?
I'm not familiar with that one.
I think it was Silverfish. I'll have to go double check it, but I think that would be a really good monster horror film as well. So,
well, as many monster movies that come out on the regular, it's just so few and far between. We have good werewolf stories.
Oh, and Ferals is one of the best. Like you give me Ferals or and I've only read the first trade so far, but Moonshine. Either one of those.
Yeah.
Would be great.
Well, the one, mine, and I've mentioned, mine won't be a surprise. Pat Mills, his Slain character, I would just absolutely love to see Slain adapted. I just love that character, and I love that world, and that would just be an amazing adaptation. I'm surprised that an English studio hasn't adapted that. That was hugely popular as part of 2001 AD, back when it was current, and it's still a big character over there today. There was a Slain video game that was released in the UK based on the popularity of the character. I would love to see Slain brought to the big screen. Also,
Caleb and I are both absolutely shocked.
Yeah, right. Yeah. None of these are going to be revelations, by the way. And his martial law character, of course, it has been It was at one time optioned, but then the failure of the Watchmen movie made the studio back off of the property.
Yeah.
And I think martial law would be very successful, and it wouldn't be difficult to do. This is not deep thinking stuff, folks. It's an action movie, and it'd be a hell of a lot of fun. Bringing to life the images that Kevin O'Neill designed it'd just be crazy. Other than that, I'll tell you something that's bugged me for a long, long time, ever since I became really familiar with the work of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, given we're not talking about comic books here, but it bugs the hell out of me that so many Stephen King properties have been adapted. And Stephen King is a pale imitation of H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft is what Stephen King tries to be. And there are a few adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft, but they're always very low budget, rarely done well. But adapting The Call of Cthulhu would be an absolutely amazing movie. And in the era where you can do these megalithic monsters rather easily because of CGI, this is right. So The Call of Cthulhu is so freaking overdue for an honest adaptation. And the case of Charles Dexter Ward would be another really, really good one. These would not be expensive movies to make by today's standards. Right. But they're Stephen King stories done the way that he tries to do them is really what it comes down to. And Stephen King has called H.P. Lovecraft the most important author to horror fiction. And, the fact that more of his stuff has not been adapted well just continues to bug the hell out of me. Especially every time I see another freaking Stephen King property that's been adapted and it sucks. I'm like, this is a joke, people.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I would love to see some Lovecraft stuff done. I don't know why they make Stephen King adaptations so badly. I mean, I know sometimes the source material's not fantastic, but even when they have good stories, they tend to really mess up the movies.
Well, and the way Stephen King writes, frankly, I mean, in my opinion at least, and it seems like I'm right about this, his stuff doesn't translate to film very well at all. I mean, you translate his stuff to film, the weaknesses of it come right to the surface. That's the way it continually looks like to me. I mean, I watched that HBO series, The Outsider. That was the dumbest thing I've seen in a long time. I was like, this is a joke. Are you kidding me? And I thought about this Charles Dexter Ward story, and I'm watching it. I'm like, this is a bad version of that kind of storytelling. But hey, whatever, teach their own. Isn't that what Craig said earlier?
Yeah.
But thirdly, I would like to see.
I also said, how about you fuck right off? So.
Yeah, that one applies as well. But and also under the umbrella of adaptations that have been done but not done well, a Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian. Give me.
I'll disagree. I love the Schwarzenegger Barbarian. Conan.
That one, that is an exception. That one is the exception, and that one happened 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, adaptation after adaptation that we've gotten since has been.
The one with Aquaman, with Jason Momoa playing.
Oh,
Conan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
and this honestly, he wasn't bad as Conan.
No,
it was the rest of the story that was not good.
Yeah, it was just an overall poorly done movie. It wasn't poorly. Yeah. It wasn't because they're the actors that in it by any means. But again, this is one of those things that I go back to like the Punishers and the usual example. Conan's not a complicated character. He's very simple, very simple. People try to give him an arc and try to give him gravity, and that's just not who the character is. And but they try every time because for whatever reason, they think that's what the story needs. And it's not what it is. It's not who the character is.
Yep. It's pretty simple.
Hey Matt,
give him a villain and have him go kill the villain.
It's a streetwise character who will not be taken advantage of. I mean, that's basically who Conan is. He's surrounded by rich people that want to basically use him for his skills and throw him away. And he's not going to be taken advantage of. He's, he's not a heroic figure. He's very much a self-interest figure, but he does have his own moral code.
Which is why the Schwarzenegger ones were done so well, because he had, opportunities in both of those movies to accept those positions and said, no, I'm going to do it on my own, and walked out. It really, to me, kind of got the essence of who Conan was.
Well, not only that, but what they did in those movies and what the good Conan stories do is, and it's exactly what Matt said. With Conan, you have Conan. He's not a super complex character. He kind of is what he is. It's one of those things you get, like what you see is what you get. But what that does is it opens up the world around him to do really interesting and credible things with like side characters. I mean, think about Thulsa Doom. Or Kulan Gath. Like all of those characters are way more complex on the page, and they have all these things going in this history and these, the magic and the followers of Set, and there's all these intricate things that you can unfold, and you allow that richness to circle the character of Conan, and it just brings that world to life. And that's what the first Conan movie, like, for me, did. And I think that's what some of the best Conan stories do. And that's one of those things. I have no idea why they haven't been able to adapt it. I would actually like to see like an HBO adaptation. I don't necessarily want to see a movie. Give me 12 episodes of that. I think that's how you do it well in 2021. Also, hey,
it has been an option on Netflix as a series.
Okay.
Conan the Barbarian has, and I'm stoked about it. I'm obviously skeptical to be done correctly, but I'm excited to see that the material is going to be brought to the screen at some point.
I just hope Jim Zub's not writing
it. No, he won't. He shouldn't be. Don't speak that into existence. Hey Matt, can I hurt your feelings just for a second?
You do it all the time.
You said Conan was 30 years ago. Nah, son, Conan was 40 years ago.
Conan the movie was 40 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, 1982.
Yeah.
So 39 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
Remember when that movie came out to the theaters?
God, James Earl Jones is a badass. I love that man. Well, let's flip this around for a second, just because we have time. But are there any things that you guys would like to see from the broader world of pop culture adapted into comic book form? That's always an interesting side of the question, because we always think about comics, because comics are basically a storyboard. They can be seen. Let me retract that statement. Comics are seen by some people as essentially storyboards. I don't think that's what they are, but a lot of people view them that way. But is there anything out in the world that you think would make a cool comic that hasn't been brought there yet?
I'm always very, very hesitant on these, because so many times intellectual properties, when they're brought into comic book form,
oh yeah, they're bad.
They're not done well. They're picked up by either bad, publishers that don't put great creative teams on them. Very rarely are they done well. Video games tend to almost always come out poorly in a comic book form. Now, some of the horror movies they've done in the past, where they've made, as long as they don't try to make them ongoing comics, if they just do a story, it works okay. But so many times what they try to do is try to make an ongoing story out of, let's say, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And, so you're always having to bring new characters in just to get them killed. It doesn't really work. Where if you take, and do it essentially like a movie, where you put 10 people in a situation with Jason and let it play itself out, then that works fine. So, tend to pick up a lot of those kinds of stories, more so than I do like video games, if that makes sense. I know that wasn't a direct answer, but it's an answer.
It sounds like something I would have said.
Just aiming high for those participation points, huh, Craig?
Well, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, okay, give me a Leprechaun comic book series,
Oh, you son of a bitch.
You're the one person who wants that.
Take up my shelf space with that trash.
I mean, the one that of course I always want is Star Wars, and that's being done, and it's being done well. So, I tend to stay away from intellectual properties that are bought by comic book companies and translated into comic books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad ones. But I mean, you also have, like a lot of the Aliens, Predator stuff. There's been some really good stories in that too. So I think it just depends on, like you said, the creative team, how much.
Well, a lot of it depends on which publisher picks it up too,
right?
Because if they're going to pay to have a team put on it, that's a decent creative team, then yes.
What you got on this one, Matt?
I don't have any screen media that I would like to see brought to a comic book form. Anything that I think is good enough to warrant it is only going to be damaged and diminished by doing so. However, I would like to see some novels brought to comic book form. And the author that jumps out to me that I would love to see some of that comic book adaptations of are Cormac McCarthy.
Yep.
For those that are unfamiliar, he is the author of No Country for Old Men, the book that movie was based upon. He's got one work he did in particular is called Blood Meridian. It's what a lot of people refer to as his opus. This is a very violent, very dark story set in the Old West about scalp hunters. It's a group of white men who are going out collecting scalps of Native Americans, and it's a collection of scumbags. I mean, that's the kind of people that would do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And the main character, you never even learn the main character's name. He's just referred to as the Kid. And there's this one famous part of this book. One of these members of the scalp hunting gang, they actually meet up with a Native American tribe, and they're scalp hunting a group of competing Native Americans. So they're gathered around the fire one night, and one of these members of the team is an absolute deplorable human being. He's a pedophile. He's a rapist. He's a violent psychopath. And Cormac McCarthy describes a scene at night. The Native American tribe is doing a war dance around the fire, and this character gets up and starts doing his own war dance with these Native Americans. And the description of it is haunting, and I would love to see that brought to life in a comic book. The fact that it's not been optioned for a movie by now is kind of strange to me because it's such a compelling piece of work. However, it is dark as all get out, and there's no feel-good moments in the story whatsoever.
Oh, wow. Amazing that's the book you like.
Right, yeah. But Cormac McCarthy's work is not known for its inspirational feel-good moments. I mean, his stuff is about people in a struggle, and it's dark and reflects on, the ugly side of society, specifically within the States. But that work but his stuff, I would love to see adapted in a comic book form of honest and loyal adaptation would be, I think, amazing.
Well, now that you said that, I'd like to change my answer.
Oh,
I would
okay.
like the Jack McDevitt novels translated into comic book form. And if you're not familiar with Jack McDevitt, he has a character named Alex Benedict, which is kind of like a futuristic Indiana Jones, except he doesn't do it for, you know, the good of society like Indiana Jones does. He does it for his own financial gain.
Mhm.
And it's all, as I said, it's in the future. They've developed faster than light travel. A lot of the relics they're looking for are from our time era. They're really interesting novels and done really well, and I would love to see them depicted in comic book form.
Nice. So I've got a few, and I'll be quick about them. But so I would like to see a team like Azzarello and Riso, and I'd say a team like them, doesn't necessarily have to be them, do The Sopranos. You know, everything except for the last season. But I think that would make a really cool comic.
Oh boy, I wouldn't trust Azzarello with that.
He, you know, like I said, like Azzarello, it doesn't need to be him. But when I say that, I could see that book being done like in the vein of 100 Bullets. That's just kind of the format in the back of my mind. There is a television show, and this would solely be, for one, I think it would make really compelling comics, but I'm always curious, you know, I'm always curious and interested in properties that will bring more people to the medium. There's a television show going on right now that's kind of beloved by a lot of people called This Is Us. It's wholly a drama. It's about a family. You know, it's about three siblings whose you know, father died when they were kids and who are dealing with their mother who's got some things going on, and life just kind of happening. I think that would be a really cool, compelling series of graphic novels. Maybe, I don't know if you would want to do that in like a monthly format, but like I think that would bring a lot of people to the medium if that was put into sequential art. I could see that being done, and you know, by the right group of people, I could see it being done well. As far as novels go, Terry Brooks, I'd like to see some of his work. And they may actually have been, I just haven't noticed them, but you know, I love his fantasy stuff. Bring that to life on the page. Anne McAfee, I could see that being done and being done well. So yeah, there's a few. There's a few that could. The Dragon Riders of Pern would make a really cool comic, I think.
Awesome.
So that, yeah, there's just...
I talked for 10 minutes about stuff I didn't want to see.
Yeah, I know, right? Get off my lawn.
All right,
that's Craig's section.
Now let's go through the list of adaptations that have been made that shouldn't have been.
Oh God, who's got that kind of time?
No.
That would be the saddest show ever.
It'd be an hour of Lance rants.
Pretty much. Oh, I miss Lance rants. Those are so fun. Throwback. Okay, so you want to play a game real quick? We'll end the show with a game. I'm going to tell you some comics that came out the year I graduated, and I want y'all to see if y'all can guess the year I graduated. You ready for this? Got your thinking hats on?
This wasn't this game we... All right. You change the rules all the damn time. I'm going to post our text messages on the... All right, brother, go. This is better than what I thought it was going to be. So
okay,
go.
well, at least I haven't disappointed you completely. I was
expecting a complete and total train wreck where we had to try and guess the year you graduated and the comic you were reading at the time.
Oh, well, I mean that we could try that, but that'd be damn near impossible.
Well, that's what I said, but. Anyways, all right, let's play it your way.
Why can't you read my thoughts? This is your fault. Why can't you read my thoughts? All right, so I'm going to start off. I'm going to give you kind of a toughie to start off with, but I think as I get down this list, you guys will you'll be able to guess this because I was in high school when the event comic is in vogue. It's it was like the height of event comics. So, but the first one is not an event comic. It's a graphic novel. It's Alison Bechdel's Fun Home.
Nope.
You ever heard of that shit, Craig?
Nope.
Have you never heard of Alison Bechdel's Fun Home?
For real?
Yeah.
Do y'all know who Alison Bechdel is?
Next.
Oh,
No,
I've
I
not
have
done
no
my
idea.
job. I'm gonna have to tell you guys about Alison Bechdel someday. All right, so we'll go over to this is a DC book. This ended the year I graduated. Infinite Crisis. Jeff Johns, Phil Jimenez.
Infinite Crisis, 2004.
Close in the ballpark, but no cigar.
2005.
Close in the ballpark, but no cigar. Civil War, the first one. Mark Millar and Steve McNiven.
2005. No, he just said that.
Nope.
You sure?
Yep. The Boys, Garth Ennis and Derek Robinson.
2006.
2006.
All right.
Graduated 2006. All those is a good book. I can't believe y'all have never heard of Fun Home.
I want you to know that I did have Civil War guest as one of your books.
Did you?
Yeah.
See, you'd have been on the mark. You wouldn't have known the year, but you'd have been right there with it.
Right.
So, yep. So how many of those? I know y'all both read Civil War. I know you've both read The Boys. I know you haven't read Fun Home. Have y'all read Infinite Crisis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth going back and revisiting just for the Phil Jimenez, if nothing else.
I mean, we read comic books during that era. We read those books, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not the Fun Home one. I don't even know what that is.
That blows my mind because it's, if you look up best graphic novels of all time, that's near the top of almost every single list. Alison Bechdel, she's
Do you believe him, Matt?
Whose list is this?
go to Google because it's up there. One of the best selling books.
I'm sure I'm going to probably get raked over the coal on the internet over this.
Multiple Eisners. Alison Bechdel invented the Bechdel test. So if you've ever heard of that, what it is films or books where two women have a conversation.
That I've heard of.
Yeah, they have a conversation on screen together without talking about a man. She's the author of other comics like Dykes to Watch Out For. But it's just, it's so good. You guys got to read Fun Home.
All
right, Craig. All right. Well, Matt, who wants to go next? I feel like Craig may need to revise.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, then you go, old man.
All right. Sandman started in this year.
1986?
No.
1988.
Close. Caliber presents #1, which was, of course, the first appearance of the Crow. Came out this year.
1990.
Nope.
89?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Wolverine Ongoing had just really got its start as well. It was on issue #3, I think, hit that January.
Damn.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Sandman started in the 80s.
Yeah, 89.
Huh.
Yep. Issue #1 was January of that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Think about how quickly comics evolved from 1986 to 89, because I don't think you get Sandman without having Watchmen or without Alan Moore and Frank Miller doing their things. Like
Neil Gaiman would argue that point.
I'm sure he would. I have no doubt that he would. But even the way the layouts and the way that those books are put together, I just don't think you have them without Watchmen and Dark Knight, and the way that they change the way books are written and read.
Maybe. I don't know. I think Sandman was going to happen regardless. But I think those 3 books can be talked about equally in the evolution of comics.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
So, Marvel Heroes Reborn, Captain America #1 by one Rob Liefeld.
1996.
That's it.
Damn.
That was a big year. Everybody remembers
Craig.
Rob Liefeld's Captain America #1.
I almost said 95, and I switched it to 96.
I was going to go 90.
Another one that Another one I know you all read at the current at the time was from Image Comic, The Curse of the Spawn, #1.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a big one too. Some other big ones are that from DC, Batman: The Long Halloween #1 debuted, as well as Kingdom Come #1.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So were you guys
That
both
was-
reading comics at the time you graduated? Or were you on, like I was, on hiatus from comics?
Oh, I was full in, man. I was buying more comics than ever because I actually had a job.
Yeah.
So I was actually buying, and I was full in on the whole 90s image revolution, spending money on stupid variant covers. I got some stupid fucking variant covers I spent money on. It's asinine. I've got all the Darkness #1 variants, just dumb. Meanwhile, I'm missing all the really good stuff. DC was coming out with all the best quality stuff. You had, as I said, Batman: Long Halloween. That's one of the best Batman stories ever written.
And you didn't read it when it was out?
No, you couldn't have forced me to read a DC comic at the time. I was like, get that weak shit out of my face. I just.
Hey, look, were you reading anything at that time?
Well,
when you graduated?
I was going to say at the time Matt's talking about, probably not, but the year
I'm talking about your graduation.
So I had dropped off of monthly books, but I was still picking up like graphic novels in trades every once in a while. I wasn't nearly an avid reader as I had been, say, like 4 years prior. And like I said, and I wasn't reading anything monthly, but like I'm thinking back to my senior year in high school. I know I think that's when I actually went out and bought a copy of The Crow to have. Like I'd read it before, but like I actually went out and like picked it up. I know at some point that year I did read Civil War all at the same time. I don't know if that had already been put out in trade or if I just picked up the single issues just to see what was going on. And then there were a few more that I'd picked up, just kind of neither here nor there. Not even, I don't remember what they were, but I would go into like Barnes and Noble or go into especially 3 months later when I started college, I would go into the college bookstore and they'd have a graphic novel set up and I'd pick it up and take it and read it. But I wasn't avidly going to comic book stores. I didn't get back in until probably 2011 hard.
A Simple No would have been okay.
Yeah, really. I actually, and I do want to mention, I bought these books when they were current that I mentioned, Marvel Heroes Reborn, Curse of the Spawn. I bought those when they were, hit the shelf. Yeah. I want to make sure.
I was just messing with you, Caleb.
No.
I actually was not reading like new comics at the time. The only comics I was reading the year I graduated was some old 80s X-Men that I was rereading. And I was reading the Nom and graphic novel or trade paperback as it came out.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
But that was actually, I say as it came out, I got them around that time. Somebody gave them to me to read, and they had been, the first two had been out for a minute. But yeah.
But the image revolution and what was going on at Marvel at the time, I was full in on, but I was consistently losing interest in what I was buying because, well, for the reason none of that stuff holds up, it just wasn't good. It was exciting to look at. And I stayed on, but my interest in comics dwindled pretty dramatically because I was reading trash. Because I didn't have anybody to direct me to the good stuff at the time. Somebody should have been directing me to DC's The Long Halloween. I'd have been a full-on DC fan if someone could have directed me to that material at the time instead of staying on this hype train that I was on.
What brought you back to comics?
When I really started getting the fever back is when the Nolan Batman movies came out.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, wow, this is quality. This is a quality adaptation. I'd always had I still had an interest in them. I wasn't in the know on what was good anymore. Wizard magazine went away, had been away for a long time. And that's where I usually read up on what was new. So whenever Nolan basically cleansed the palette, the pop culture palette for Batman, it kind of reignited my interest in the comic books altogether, and got me back into it actively and regularly instead of sporadically.
Caleb, what brought you back?
So
I mean, I realize you were still reading graphic novels at the library and stuff, but what brought you back into the?
So it's kind of similar to what Matt said, except mine was the Avengers. So when Marvel Studios was, setting up the Avengers run and everything, and I was just like, oh, like all of that's like that stuff from the Kurt Busiek and George Perez line that I love. Like I could pick out moments. But really in 2012, like I started reading again in 2011, but 2012 is when I started picking up a lot because I had that really bad motorcycle wreck.
Gotcha.
So for those who don't know, I used to ride Harleys, still love Harley Davidsons. I love motorcycles, trashed it, fractured my neck, and was stuck at home for a while. So I started really picking up a lot of books because what the fuck else was I going to do? Couldn't move around. So, that's when I moved back to Arkansas and got linked up with, comic shops here and started really reading monthly heavily again.
So I had a friend that talked me into starting to buy comics again. And the books I jumped on at the time, as early 2000s, was Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, Flash Reborn, Civil War was just, it was pre-Civil War, but getting ready to, everything was setting up for that. 52 was going on at the time. So those were some of the books I jumped on to kind of get me back in the fire.
That's heavy GC. That's funny.
Ultimate Spider-Man. It was a pretty good mix at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was somebody that had mostly read Marvel as a kid. But at the time, I just went in and said, I don't even know what to get, and asked them to suggest some books for me. And that's what they got me on.
So that's what I was saying. When I think of you, I do think of somebody who's primarily, obviously you're well read and you've got a breadth of titles that you read, but I think of you as more of a Marvel guy because of Spider-Man.
Well, certainly is in my childhood I was.
Yeah.
As an adult, it's been more of an even mix, but as a child, it was very heavily in favor of Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sold out on Marvel as a kid. I wouldn't read anything else.
Yeah. Which is why you didn't read Long Halloween, which I didn't read either. So
yeah.
But he read.
But there was about 15 years there where I didn't read any comics. So, I've had to go back and kind of fill in a lot of those blind spots.
Those are the dark days. We don't talk about those.
Yeah, medieval times.
Yeah, we don't
dark days indeed.
Right.
Well, all right. Well, what's not the dark days right now? As long as the snow melts and you can get to your local comic shop. But every week, new comics come out, and we do our best to go get our hands on them when we can. And we do our best to give you fine folks at home and each other a little bit of an idea of what might be cool to pick up. So I'm curious about you guys. What's coming out this week that you are going to try to grab?
Yeah, I found one, and it's from a publisher I'm not familiar with, and that's Behemoth Comics. And this is Paranormal Hitmen #1 by Brett Murphy and Wilson Gandolfo. The Sopranos meet the Ghostbusters in this action comedy starring Gene Rizzo and Dwayne Grace, two hitmen working for the infamous mobster Alfonso Carboni. Seems like an interesting book. I know I'm not signed up for it, so I'm going to have to probably get it digitally, but it looked interesting to me when I saw it. So
I'm looking forward to X-Men #18. Of course, this is by Jonathan Hickman and Linnell Francis Yu. This one I'm specifically excited about because X-23 is reemerging from the vault that she was put into early in the series, and that's a character I really dig, and I really am looking forward to seeing what Hickman does with her.
I'm a couple issues behind on that. I need to get caught up for no other reason than I'm just behind. is there like actually like does it appear that we're going to have some sort of like external conflict with the X-Men at some point, or even internal conflict?
I'm not sure what
you know what I'm
mean.
saying. It's a lot. It's a very well done story, but I'm looking for, eventually, do you think it's going to break out into a, like an all out war between the two factions of X-Men that have always been at war?
It doesn't feel that way, but who's to say what'll happen? Yeah. It certainly doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. All right. Just guessing.
Well, I know last week Matt picked a X-Men book as well. How'd that one treat you, buddy?
Didn't treat me well at all.
You okay?
No, man. That did not treat me well at all. That one I do not recommend.
There is a little book coming out that I think folks are going to enjoy if they pick it up, and it's from Image Comics, and it's starting off a new series. It's called Two Moons, #1. This book is written by a man that, if you are a fan of BPRD, which I have recently started dabbling into, I'm not that familiar with it, but I've been picking up some stuff. It's John Arcudi. He's back in Image, and he has got they call him a rising star. I haven't seen any of his stuff, but I'm curious. Valerio Giangiordano is doing the art on this. So it's an issue. The first issue looks at the long journey of this man named Virgil Morris. He also goes by the name Two Moons. He's a Pawnee man. He was fighting for the Union. He was fighting for the North during the Civil War. And this assumedly takes place just after that. So he's suddenly confronted with his shamanic roots, and he discovers the horrors far worse than combat and the ghost of his past. So I'm going to check this out. I like, the mysticism aspect of it. I like the Native American angle that they're doing, and I like period comics. So looks fun. I'm gonna check this out. It's got a couple of variant covers that look really cool. And I'll probably just end up getting the main one, but I'm gonna check it out. New stuff from Image. John Arcudi's a strong writer. We got anything else? Anything we left out? Oh, I got something that, just because Matt said this name a while ago and it reminded me. You said the Curse of the Spawn #1. Have you seen the amount of stuff that your boy is about to drop in the Spawn universe?
I've seen the stuff he is talking about dropping. Considering the source here, who knows if it'll happen or not? And also, who fucking cares? I think that's an important thing to say.
Yeah.
I mean, not to mention, and I was having this discussion with someone in the shop yesterday, he's had a, quote, Spawn universe a long time. Now He's just calling it the Spawn universe to catch that hype wave. Same reason we talked about a movie that never happened. I mean, this.
So I want it to succeed just in the same way that I want everything else to succeed. I mean, I'm never one that wishes something fails unless it's coming from somebody who's just an abhorrent piece of shit, which, we don't really worry about too much. But I'm kind of like you. It's just like, I don't know how this is going to do, and maybe it'll do great, and I hope it does. But, I was talking with some friends online about it. Specifically our brother Jason Wood from over at 11 O'Clock Comics, and he was talking about how here recently there has been a big boom in sales of Spawn just because they're doing a bunch of variant covers. I mean, Todd McFarlane himself has been doing variant covers, and the collectors are just going crazy about them, and it's inflating the numbers. But surely he can't equate that same thing to the people who are actually reading the book, because I mean there are people who are buying 4
Are you familiar with this man?
Do what now?
Are you familiar with this man?
Yeah, that's true. Delusion's kind of a thing with him. But I don't know. So yeah, I hope it succeeds. I just don't know that it's just a lot. So
yeah, I don't wish him any ill will, of course. I'm just like, it's just a big eye roll. That's what it is. There we go.
Well, as you said, I mean, it's not like the Spawn universe is something new.
I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably pick up the Medieval Spawn. They're talking. There's a Medieval Spawn book coming out as part of this package, and I'll probably check that out just because
you should actually lie about that.
I am not going to lie. I'm probably not picking up any of the Spawn universe stuff.
Moving forward, Caleb, you should say you haven't picked any of it up. I'm just for the sake of your reputation.
The medieval Spawn stuff is the only Spawn stuff I've really ever cared about.
Why is that? Begs the question.
That's a good question.
And your favorite Ghost Rider was the one where he was a cowboy on a horse, right?
I mean, I don't appreciate. Look, you can't have told me to shut the fuck up.
I did not tell you to shut up.
And besmirch my taste in bad comics in the same episode.
Did I ever tell you to shut up?
Damn, Craig is,
I just
said
that you had a long way of saying no. That's all I pointed out.
Hateful.
Hateful. It's not hateful. I'm just pointing out that it took you a long time to say no. It took me a long time to say I had nothing for adaptations either.
We're listen. This is an artful dodge of the most obvious question. Why the fuck are you interested in the medieval Spawn storyline?
Nostalgia for anything else. That's all I've got. Like
nostalgia for medieval times, or nostalgia for
the medieval Spawn book. So look, I like Jason Sean Alexander. I love his art. You know, he's the same dude that's doing Philadelphia right now, and he is arguably, for my taste, the best artist that has ever been on Spawn. He did a lot of the medieval Spawn stuff. So if no other reason than it's my first kind of take, at least I think he did. I'd have to go back and double check that. I may be wrong. But
no.
Stares at you and Greg Capullo.
I see, and Greg Capullo. I love Big Poppy's art. So there's reasons to like it. Even if I genuinely, off the top of my head, I don't remember what the story was. So I think the answer to that is just the visuals. I think there were some great artists on that book. You know,
all right. What was that you said earlier, Craig? Takes all kinds or something like that?
Why do I even with you two? God.
Listen,
we love you, Caleb.
Listen, you cannot say things like, I am really looking forward to medieval Spawn and not expect it to get browbeat for it. You are not being honest or realistic. If you put that out there.
Really looking forward to it. I said out of all the stuff, that was the one I would probably end up picking up. I'm not like over here biting my fingernails.
Your dirty mouth just keeps spouting filthier things. That's what's going on right here.
Fucking river dancing on my balls today.
Oh my God. If only they'd relaunch Brigade, huh? Fuck you, Caleb, and all the things you like. That's what I'm trying to say.
Prophet. He's waiting for the relaunch of Prophet.
Hey, give me that Johnson Stroman tribe book that can be.
Oh my God!
I fucking hate y'all. I don't know why I do this show. That's a lie. I love you. We got anything else we need to cover? You guys got any other of my flaws you want to?
Man, who's got that kind of time?
All right. Well, we certainly hope you all have enjoyed listening to us at home. This has been a fun episode. We'll be back same time, same place to talk about some stuff we read next week. It's getting close to the end of the month, so hell, we may have another Chaos episode, which is really kind of what this was, but I think Matt's probably going to talk us into sneaking one more in.
Kind of Chaos episode. Here you go.
Yeah.
Kind of chaos.
It's a little chaos, just a smidgen. We hope you all have stayed safe and warm. We know that people are going through a lot right now. Our hearts are with you. That's what we have comics for. Escape for a little bit.
Our hearts are with you, but we're getting on a plane and going to Cancun.
Yeah, no, I don't have Cancun.
It's the children's fault.
That son of a bitch left his dog. Like,
it's the children's fault.
Like, you're a bastard if you leave the puppy behind. Anyway, try to have a great week. Hit up your local comic shop if you can, and if you want to experience more of this in real time, jump over to our Facebook group. We're at Southern Fried Geekery on the Facebooks. We also are on Instagram and Twitter at SFG Podcast on both of those. Hadn't posted anything in a little bit because it's been one of them weeks, but we'll do a better job of that. But come converse with us. Tell us what you're reading, and if nothing else, go forth and love some comics. Woo! Simple woo will suffice.